Thank you for taking the time for doing this today.
Of course.
The series is just, I'm enjoying it. It's just so bizarre and so unique
Yeah.
in good ways, um, which makes it very difficult to explain. I was going to ask you, how do you explain it to somebody who's a potential viewer?
Um, Usually I say it's as though the um lying schemes of Breaking Bad and kind of watching the unraveling of a person kind of like in Mad Men were to meet the Jetsons, you know.
That's
And the whimsicality of that tone and that genre is brought to mediate that those complex uh, uh, themes of and a man going through an existential crisis, a team realizing that they're lying not only to the customers but to themselves. It's a good, it gets a long pitch, but I enjoy it.
that's the thing. It's so there's so much to it, and I've heard people compare it to other series, but there's nothing else like it out there that I can. There is that Mad Men feel. There is definitely some Jetsons, some Black Mirror, almost like at least
Yeah.
early on. Well, actually, I think all the way through. And the tone shifts too, and you're not really sure where you stand because, like the robots and everything, they have these smiles on their faces, yet they're there's a lot of facades.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
until you get behind them, you don't really know the series you're watching.
Yeah, I love that.
When we first meet Joey, how would you describe him?
Oh boy, he's been told his whole life that the dreams he has of taking adventures and going out and fulfilling his own wishful thinking is completely illegal. That's not allowed. He knows what happens to the people you leave behind when you do selfish actions like follow your dreams. And so he's very wary of keeping his mother happy and sane and keeping what's left of a family unit cohesive. Obviously, all of that changes when Jack comes along and sort of says the exact right things to unlock all of those, tumultuous desires inside of him. The desire that I think any young person has of, you want to go out, you want to explore the world, you want to find who you are. And it was a great challenge to play Joey as someone who has those, under the surface, but has just kept them tucked away because he knows that's what's safe. That's what's considerate.
Yeah. And what enticed you about the character? Why did you want to play him?
I mean, it was a Billy Crudup Apple TV show. Like I don't know. That was a pretty cool pitch that they came to me with. And then when I read, because I only got the sides at first. This is my first series regular, so I was taping, and I read the sides, and I could not for the life of me decide whether or not this was supposed to be an ultra stylized thing, like a piece, because you read the action lines and all of these robots and all of these fake futuristic brands and very 50s. You imagine everyone in a fedora. And so I couldn't tell if I was supposed to do, like a 50s kind of radio dialect or not. And I ended up choosing to just play it completely natural, very grounded and just see what happens. And thankfully I did, because that's the way that the show ended up going. And so what I think attracted me to the character after I found out that's how the show was going to go is the fact that the 50s retro future world is so much of a backdrop for the true narrative that's happening, right? It's a human story about a father and a son, and all that the retro future 50s does is provide a really interesting material to kind of embroider that story upon. And I adore that that's how the story was approached. I adore that they gave me so much room to put myself and grow inside of Joey instead of being so prescriptive with, no, it has to sound this way. It was really open to interpretation, and I was really grateful for that.
That's great. So yeah, the relationship with Jack and Joey evolves pretty quickly. So by episode 2, you have this kind of unknowingly, you're on a father-son hangout, essentially. He's kind of showing you the ropes. I'm surprised he didn't take you fishing at some point.
I know.
How do you describe that relationship? What's it like? And like it's, I mean, through Joey's eyes, what's he seeing? What's he thinking? It's like, my boss just ultra friendly, or like,
yeah. Well, he's had one boss before this, which was Mr. Cartoonian at the grocery store. I imagine he's been there since high school, or since probably sophomore year of high school when he started working to help his mom out. And so this guy who's selling houses on the moon, who, I mean, this isn't Joey's first run-in with this dude. He comes to a small town, he says words and ideas, talking about how regret is a killer worse than death. And this is something that Joey has felt, but just hasn't had the words to latch onto. So I think, even before that second episode outing, Joey feels an immense sense of that Jack is his role model, that Jack is the guy, Jack is the dad he's always wanted. And that was pretty immediate. That didn't take a lot of acting, especially, with someone like Billy, to be able to pretend to want to emulate him, and on set, I'm watching this guy act, and he's so obviously brilliant. And you act opposite someone like that, and you're immediately magnetically drawn to them. And so I think it wasn't a far leap from Joey to Nick there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it shows, like, Billy's work is incredible. He pretty much has everybody under his spell. Like, he can turn minds so quickly. And I'm like, it's the writing, but the performance, and then watching everybody just kind of sway to his like hypnotic ways is just amazing to watch. Going back to being a father, what was his what would you rate him as a father out of, say, 10? Rate Jack as a father.
Jack as a dad?
Yeah.
Oh boy, depends when in the series we're talking. Because when Joey first meets him, it's a 12 out of 10. And watch the rest of the series and see the conundrums that the writers put me in. It was a pretty amazing role to get to play, to go, all right, so here you are playing opposite Billy Crudup. What an honor, incredible. And now you're gonna have some pretty unbelievable scenes opposite him where it's not just about holding your own, it's about holding an entire world of moral arguments against his sensibility. And that was, intensely amazing. So depends when in the series I'd rate him. It goes everywhere from 12 to 0.
When you get toward the end, those last 3 episodes or so, you're not sure where Joey is going to land and where this is all going to go. You see these opportunities for it to implode, and then I don't want to spoil too much, but
exactly, yeah,
it's unpredictable. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Getting the scripts as we were filming was such a joy, because I got to, I was heading my character in one direction and sort of thinking, okay, this is the trajectory that like I'm seeing for the, up until episode 7, and then episode 8 would come out and I go, all right, time to figure out where his head goes. It was such a wild roller coaster. And in the end, I think they took such good care of us in making that narrative so cohesive.
That's great, because in the beginning, Joey is kind of this lost, innocent, like a puppy almost. He hasn't seen the world. He seems to, has been sheltered, and then by the end, he's a much different person. So let me ask you this question: Who is he when season 1 concludes? You don't have to get into details about what happened, so in case someone hasn't watched it, but
yeah, I mean, well, I think the arc for Joey is he knows what his morals are. He knows that the thing he cares about more than anything else is the lives of those he loves, right? So whether that be his mother, whether that be Jack, whether that be the people he's selling the moon to, he feels very responsible for those around him. The question is, what is the right action to do in order to take care of the people that you love? And for Joey, for the entire first season, it's telling the truth. Telling the truth is always the best thing. And throughout the season, you watch Jack try to persuade him that sometimes love means lying. Sometimes love means withholding and keeping people within a dream-like state. There's a great line Jack has, which is, what is life without a dream to make it go down easy? And I think at the end of the season, you see Joey make one decision to lie that turns into another decision to lie. And it gets a little bit out of hand. And so is he going to crumble within the whirlwind that he finds himself in, or is he going to rise to the occasion and keep his moral compass and do whatever it takes to keep that, moral compass pointing north? Whether or not that means doing the moral choice, is the moral compass going to stay strong? And I think that's a interesting conundrum. Yeah,
there's a lot of cliffhangers at the end.
Is there?
You're seeing, yeah. I mean, everybody's like, that's it. Wait, there's got to be more coming out. Nope, we'll see you next time. And I'm like, it's unfair. It's which is fantastic, but it's kind of rude. Going back to some of the quote you mentioned, there's just some brilliant writing in there. There's so many great lines, and it's got to be a joy to deliver the dialogue, but also to react to it. What is it like working with Billy in this cast as you're delivering these amazing words?
Yeah, I mean, Amit and Lucas are the writers of the show, and they created such an interesting vocabulary for this world where it's the 50s, but not quite. So what we all to be really careful about not paraphrasing. I realized midway through, I think it was episode 6, that I had accidentally improv'd and put in like Jesus Christ somewhere in there, and I had to check with them. I was like, wait, is Jesus Christ in this world? What is the religion of this place? And they said, don't sweat that much. But it is interesting where you have to treat the language very specifically. This wasn't a world in which there was much room to kind of throw in your own idioms, because they spent so much time perfecting the idioms within their script. All that being said, working with actors of this caliber, I mean, it just sounds as though that's how they speak every day. I mean, it was pretty astounding to be so wrapped up in this world, not just with the sets and not just with the costumes, but also with the actors at hand who make it seem as though they've always walked in these shoes, have always spoken this way. It was difficult to refrain from doing a dialect, a bit of a "see here, mister" kind of dialect.
Yeah.
But I did find comfort in doing a tiny little Billy Crudup impersonation throughout some of it. I flattened some of my vowels. I got some of his speech pattern in just to hint at vague genetics. Not that that's how genetics work, but it was a fun game I played with myself while doing the character.
Hey, there's a lot of crazy science in this, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, you fit right in though. Among this cast, I was very surprised when I checked out your filmography, and I was like, oh wait, this is your first like major role, and what a major role it is, to work with Apple TV Plus, but also with Hank Azaria and Billy, and it's got to be a dream.
It was a dream. Hank, I don't know if we filmed it, but Hank, during that, there's a scene where it's me, Duchesne, and Hank in the second episode. And at one point, Hank, I think it was rehearsal, so I don't think it's filmed. I could be wrong. But at one point, it was on my close-up, and Hank said, "Who's your favorite Simpsons character?" And I said, "Oh, well, I mean, I love Joe." And he was like, "You want me to? Do you want me to be him for like this rehearsal?" And so there I was with the bartender, just sort of, he was doing the voice. It was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You forget when you see him acting something like this, you forget, oh wait, he's the voice of like a dozen Simpsons characters for like the last 30 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So with this series, I mean, you're touching upon it, but there's kind of this world they've built, and there are secrets that, I mean, I don't know. I'm wondering how deep are we going to get into the world? It's much more than, that's the thing. So I think when you start watching it, my daughter saw me watching it and they're like, what is this? And why are there robots and all that? And I'm like, that's what draws you in, but it's more the family, the dysfunctional family, non-existent family dynamic which really is the core of it. But I'm really interested into what secrets or what kind of, not secrets, but how much world building are we going to do? Because you don't know what's on the moon. You don't know what's out. Are they living in a dome somewhere? What is this strange world?
Yeah, I think Ahmed and Lucas purposefully did, this first season with this family unit and this group of salesmen at the core to anchor you in something human. Right. I mean, because we don't have guides through wild worlds, then why should we care? You can show us a bunch of flashy things, but then you're watching a PBS sci-fi documentary, which are great. I grew up on those. But in order to, make it a narrative about humans navigating this world, I think we start with this first season very much about us. That being said, there are so many loose ends, and not just in the realm of the humans whose lives are obviously going to change drastically at the end of this first season, but APP, the company that seems to have their hands in everything in this world. The actual moon, who's up there, what's going on there. Walt, at a certain point, I think it's episode 7, says that his rockets are just doing trash runs, and what does that mean? So I don't want to give away anything or say that I know anything whatsoever, but I think having questions about the world is a good direction to be in. Yeah.
Well, I like that you kind of are in the dark, and I think it, like you said, for your character development, to have these experiences and his changes and the reveals that he goes through happen to you in kind of real time as per episode, is great, because it really keeps you wrapped up in so many different elements of it without being like, here it is, you've seen everything. Like, our series out there, I'm not saying, well, Westworld had a ton of questions too, but I mean,
right.
These world series like that you're so focused on like the theories that you're not focused on the human element.
I will say, I mean, just in terms of the character always finding out stuff, that is one of the hardest things to act. It's so much easier to act when you have the information and you're doling it out. And so much of this series was just Joey finding out things. And what a great challenge, because you oh gosh, when was it? I think it was some point in episode 7. I just had to, there was a take where I went to the director, Ryan, and I said, is my mouth open for the entire episode? Am I just constantly jaw dropped? He said, yes, and it's perfect, keep it. And I was like, duh. All right, fine. And it works. They took great care of me. But you get so self-conscious when you're finding out things for 3 takes at a time for every scene. It's very funny.
That's great. What were some of your favorite inventions that you saw in the series? And what was the interaction with those? Like, were there a lot of those like CGI, or how did that?
Almost all of them were practical. In fact, I
Oh,
think all of them were practical.
oh, that's great.
Every robot, that was me driving a 1961 T-Bird, which they brought to my trailer the first day I was on set, because one of the first shots we did was, me and Billy in the car, and they wanted to teach me how to drive it. So my very first thing I did on set was drive around this unbelievable vintage car around the parking lot at base camp. And, I said, I think I'm going to like this.
That's awesome.
I would say, yeah, as far as inventions go, that one was a favorite to interact with. I have this like can stacker in episode 2 in the Hartunians deli, which is so ridiculous because the shelf that I'm putting cans on is well within human arm reach, but they've instead created this massive machine that has a little conveyor belt that raises a very tiny little bit and then puts these cans on the top shelf. And I think that was just so perfect because all of these inventions are so slick for the 50s. Mm-hmm. They do absolutely nothing. I mean, it would be so much easier to just put the cans on the shelf. And instead, there's this massive machine that's going to change your life. And I adored the senselessness of all of these inventions, because I think it speaks so much to consumerism and how we interpret our purchases, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, it must have been a lot of fun for them to sit in a room and say, hey, what can we build? What is just the most outrageous, and then actually come through and make it happen. Yeah. I always love a jetpack. You can't beat a jetpack.
Can't beat a jetpack.
No. Let me close out with one quick one. 3 words to describe Joey Shorter.
Ambitious, lost, and heart-filled. Huh? That's a hyphen.
That's good. Hyphens work. I get a lot of hyphens on this question, so
damn.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for watching, man. Thank you.
Yeah. When will we see more? What's the plan? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
You don't know yet? Okay.
Here, but
All right. I'll put in a good word and get you the details as soon as possible.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Have a great day.